Going through your first initial acquisitions there, it sounds like you were leveling up and, taking it to that next level each time, the more you probably educate yourself in the market. This is early on in your career. What about, you've got the experience under your belt, COVID happens.
No, even before that, Reece, I can jump in. What did you do from 2014 to 20 when the market did nothing?
So I went traveling for a year and a half, cut the cord financially, did a couple of house behind a house developments, to be frank, whilst I was away to keep
your finger on the pulse
going.
Yeah.
It turned out to be literally two houses on two streets that backed onto each other, just coincidentally, and just did two house behind a houses. So it was quite convenient from a location perspective. That kept my brain going. Feeling like I was achieving
make money
something.
in that time. The market's going backwards.
Yeah, well, it was interesting that on the FISO at 2016, it would have been the market. The projects would have made me about $100,000.
Yep.
That was book money. You don't make money until you sell.
We know that.
And there would have been a time between 2016 and 20 where that profit would have been eroded. And now, obviously,
so you hung on to those assets.
10 years later, there's a few $100,000 each in those things. I'm a big believer you don't sell unless you need to, or if you've got something better to do with that
Opportunity
money.
cost.
And there hasn't been a point where I've needed to. There may have been a point where I've had something better to do with that money.
But you could hang on.
And you
only realise the loss when you sell, right?
Exactly right. And so the same thing happened. I finished a Triplex development just before I went travelling. That would have made $200,000 on paper in 2016. The market then went backwards for a couple of years. And there would have been a time where that development was break even or even at a loss holding those three assets. But what I knew was that the rent was covering the mortgage. I had no need to sell. And now you look at that book value again. I haven't sold any of those. There'd be over $1 million worth of equity in those properties. And so, again, unless I have something better to do with that money right now or I need it, there's no need for me to sell that. But to answer what was happening between 2016 and 20, I came back after a year and a half, big self-development space, got honest with myself after meeting people along the way who were sort of gave me some clarity about what I enjoy in my life. And I was shown a TED Talk that I normally wouldn't watch. TED Talks is things you really have to be passionate about. And it was like 5 ways to know your path in life, which is pretty wanky, right? But when you're on holidays, you watch them all.
Absolutely.
And I don't remember the other 4 things, but the third thing was, what's the one thing you're good at that people know you for, like your mates and your family friends? And that was researching property and developing property. That was what I've been doing since I was 19 as a side hobby with my full-time job when I should have been asleep, right? And so I was like, stuff it. I've cut the cord. I've got nothing I need to go back to. I'm going to go home, get all my diplomas and my licenses and things like that and help people doing what I've been doing. And that's where Strategic started. It was a business helping other people buy property and develop property to the extent that they can afford it. And so from 2016 to 20, we started off with me, and then it was another person in the team, and it grew to us helping 105 clients do 105 duplexes, triplexes, and quads. And that was my gig. And obviously it's just graduated. I've sort of promoted myself over time as I was ready with my risk profile and my education to learn more and therefore take on, as you said, incrementally another risk at a time, maybe one risk per project at a time to do bigger projects and different projects with different segments in the market.
Post-2020, COVID, the start of, I guess, the Perth upswing that we're on now, when did you know it was on?
To be frank, I think we knew it was on before COVID, and COVID was a speed bump. The first podcast episode I did, number 1, with Brendan Ptolemy, who I think has been on this podcast with you guys. He was my first guest, December 2nd, 2018. And the episode essentially was called Green Shoots, ? Which is ironic given the conversation that you guys are having about Melbourne right now. And you don't know what the future holds for Melbourne. And we didn't know what the future held for Perth. There wasn't like an AUKUS happening. We were still in the doldrums, 30 weeks of stock on the market. We hadn't even gotten to the worst stock on market yet, which was 5 months after that podcast started, which was 17,200 properties on the market in March 2019 when Bill Shorten lost the unlosable election at the time to Scott Morrison, threatening our property tax incentives.
Never touch negative gearing.
Yeah. But then, so that was, I think, the impetus really of having a conversation about where we think this is going. And then I guess it's data driven. It's always been data driven for me. There's no point feeling it out. What we started to notice was stock on market from March 2019 was dropping materially before COVID. And then COVID was a scary time for everyone for 6 weeks in Perth. But I was very confident, especially that, and the data shows like 1-to-1 nearly, every transaction we didn't get in that 6 weeks was made up for with massive, like 1,400 transactions a week over the next couple of months in Perth. So you came back to that mean of transaction growth. And then you really knew it was on, I think, when we started to drop below 13,000 and started to drop below 10,000 properties on the market. And then it's just been a conversation every year since then of surely it can't get to 8,000. It can't, 5,000 properties on the market. And then to obviously be in a situation where just middle of last year we're at 3,500 properties thinking it'll get back to 5,000 by Christmas. There's got to be some mean reversion going on here at least. And then you see this Christmas of 1,800 properties on the market.
Scary thought.
That's below. That's like, imagine like an unemployment rate of 2% or something.
Or
that's
less.
where we're at right now in property.
Yeah.